By the late 1960s, the Beatles were no longer arguing about chords or melodies. They were arguing about identity, about what their music represented and where it was supposed to go. What had once been a shared vision was slowly splitting into personal definitions of art, each member pulling in a different direction. No divide was clearer than the one between John Lennon and Paul McCartney. To John, music was becoming raw, confrontational, and emotionally exposed. To Paul, it could still be melodic, theatrical, and carefully constructed. That difference would eventually harden into frustration, and one song in particular became a symbol of everything John was growing tired of. That song was Maxwell's Silver Hammer.
Majoring in medicine, calls her on the phone.
Paul McCartney approached Maxwell's Silver Hammer with enthusiasm. It was playful, tightly written, and built around a jaunty melody that felt deliberately old-fashioned. On the surface, it sounded cheerful, almost innocent. But beneath that brightness was a darkly comic story about a character who casually murders people with a hammer. Paul enjoyed that contrast, the sweetness masking violence, the sing-along tune hiding something disturbing. To him, it was clever. To John Lennon, it was unbearable. By the time the band began working seriously on the song during the Abbey Road sessions, Lennon's patience was gone. He later dismissed the track outright, referring to it as granny music shit, his shorthand for songs he felt were outdated, theatrical, and emotionally dishonest. When John used the term granny music, he wasn't talking about age in a literal sense. He was talking about style. Songs that reminded him of music hall traditions, novelty tunes, or pre-rock sensibilities, things he believed the Beatles were supposed to have moved beyond. In his view, Maxwell's Silver Hammer represented Paul indulging a side of himself that John found regressive. While Lennon wanted music to feel urgent and confrontational, Paul was leaning into structure, melody, and irony. The clash wasn't just musical, it was philosophical. John later complained that the band spent an excessive amount of time perfecting the song, repeating takes, refining details, and polishing something he had no interest in being part of. For him, it was energy wasted on a track that felt irrelevant to where he wanted the Beatles to go. Maxwell's Silver Hammer is often cited as one of the recordings that exposed how fractured the Beatles had become. George Harrison reportedly grew frustrated with the endless takes. Ringo Starr later admitted he didn't enjoy recording it either. Paul, however, pushed forward. To him, the song mattered. It reflected his belief that pop music could still be light, melodic, and meticulously crafted, even at a time when rock was becoming heavier and more confrontational. John's absence during parts of the recording only deepened the divide. When he did participate, it was reluctantly. The joy Paul felt in the song was met with open contempt from John. The phrase granny music shit has followed Paul McCartney for decades, often used unfairly to dismiss his contributions. But in context, it says more about John Lennon's state of mind than Paul's songwriting. John was rejecting polish. Paul was embracing craft. What John heard as outdated sentimentality, Paul heard as timeless melody. And Maxwell's Silver Hammer became the flashpoint where those values collided without compromise. Ironically, the song did exactly what Paul intended. It stuck in people's heads. It became memorable, unsettling, and strangely durable, even if half the band despised it. After the Beatles split, John continued to criticize what he saw as Paul's tendency toward what he called granny styles. Paul, on the other hand, never apologized for it. He defended melody, structure, and accessibility. Believing that emotional impact didn't have to come from anger or abrasion, Maxwell's Silver Hammer remained divisive, loved by some, mocked by others. But it captured something honest about the band at that moment, four musicians no longer agreeing on what the Beatles were supposed to be. When John Lennon dismissed Maxwell's Silver Hammer as granny music, he wasn't just insulting a song, he was rejecting a worldview, one that Paul McCartney still believed in. The song didn't break the Beatles, but it revealed how broken they already were. And in that sense, even a song John called rubbish tells the truth. About ego, artistry, and the moment when harmony finally gave way to division.